If West Virginia loses to Kansas this weekend, could somebody be on the chopping block? Could Jimbo Fisher be in play in Morgantown at some point? A lot of fans clamoring for Jimbo Fisher. We're here to talk about that and more on this episode of Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up? Welcome in, guys. My name is Mountaineer Paul, and this episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Thank you guys for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen every day. You know this is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and we cover your team every day. Well, on this episode, we're going to talk about the what-if game. We're going to play a little bit of that. Who would be on the chopping block if a West Virginia team loses this week to Kansas? Now, I want it to happen. I actually don't think it'll happen. We're going to be doing a preview tomorrow with Locked On Jayhawks, so stay tuned for that for tomorrow. But for now, I'm going to play a little bit of the what-if game both ways. First, we're going to go with if West Virginia loses, who would be on the chopping block? I don't think it would be Neal Brown. Let's just start there. I think Neal Brown, unless we just go winless over the next 6-7 games, maybe then you see something happen. But, I don't think there's a scenario in where Neal Brown gets fired before the year. His buyout is much smaller after the season than it is now, and it's just never happened in the program's history. So I don't think it would be him, but I do think that Jordan Leslie or a defensive member of the staff would probably be on the chopping block after, Kansas during the bye week, before Oklahoma State. You could possibly see a change happening there if the team continues to struggle at the level that it has. Maybe they get some things fixed against a Kansas team that is also struggling with Leipold and Grimes at the helm at their offense. It's going to be a test this week. This is a guy that the last time we see him put up 55 points on West Virginia, I'll never forget that game because we found out after the fact that the week before we played Kansas, if you will remember, they didn't run that offense that Kotelnicki runs, and we were their first actual Big 12 opponent, Kotelnicki, Leipold, and company. And we were one of those first wins that gave them confidence. One of the big players that's still on the team from that game is Kobe Bryant. If you remember, he had a pick 6 in overtime to seal that win for Kansas. I'll never forget it. And so it's going to be a tough game. I think Kansas is much better than they've shown. UNLV is a good team. I don't think they faced the schedule we have, and I think we're way more battle-tested, and we're at home, right? So I think those three things all have to factor into the equation for us. They're having to come basically across country to play us, and I like us, but we're going to talk a little bit more about it tomorrow. I think, Derek Johnston at Locked On Jayhawks can certainly talk me out of it. I mean, we'll see what he has to say about it. And so the second part to this is if we get to a point this season where Neal Brown is going to be fired, who's going to replace him? I'd say even if it did happen, they would go interim, right? Unless it's right before a bowl game. You see new coaches coach bowl games sometimes, which is kind of weird. But it does happen every now and then. But the main name you hear is Jimbo Fisher. And while I don't hate it, but I'm not in love with it either. And here's why. During his tenure with Texas A&M, Jimbo averaged 9 wins, which is good. We would take that here. But he had the numbers 6, 5, 1, 15, and 10th ranked recruiting classes. Other teams in the country that have done less with that would be Texas, would be the next closest comparison, although they have now got that thing turned around in Texas. But the other teams in the conference in the SEC that had recruiting classes like that, and even Clemson to some extent, Alabama and Georgia, they won with that talent. So, obviously there must be some differences between the teams that have similar recruiting rankings and winning, actually putting wins on the field. He was 45-25 while he was there, and I get it. There are much worse candidates for West Virginia. He's a West Virginia guy. I just think we get stuck on this. It has to be a West Virginia guy thing. I think Neal Brown has proved from a cultural standpoint that doesn't have to be the case. I think we all can admit that Neal Brown has done a bang-up job as far as the culture in the locker room and being a stand-up person. I know that doesn't get you wins on the field. But what I'm saying is Jimbo Fisher is a little bit more controversial than Neal Brown, He's way more towards the Rich Rod type than he is the Neal Brown type, which is fine. That we would have a lot to talk about, a lot of news articles. It'd be good for the show. There's no doubt about that. And so he wouldn't be the top of my list, and I would have to really think about that. But we could do worse, So I think it's a fun thing to talk about. I don't know how realistic it is. I mean, he's super rich right now. That's another thing that worries me is you wonder how much fight he's got left as far as, he's already won a national championship. He's already worth $100 million or whatever it is. You just kind of wonder a little bit, and I personally worry just a little bit, will he still have the same drive he did at Florida State when he put a really good team together with Jameis and those boys? It's something to think about. So he is almost 60 years old. I think he's 58, 59 years old. So although he's not old, he's not a spring chicken. Obviously my fantasy out of the world possibility, like I realize this would not happen, but obviously I think we all would want Nick Saban but that's not possible. So, Chadwell is somebody that I would really look strongly at over at Liberty. He's done a really good job there. There are other guys that are young that are doing a good job out there, but certainly Jimbo brings his own pedigree, and I'm not here to crap on it. I'm just saying that he definitely underachieved with what he had at Texas A&M, and that really can't be debated. So I think that's something I wanted to get off my chest because a lot of people have been bringing up Jimbo in the last couple of days, and I get why. And maybe he would bring better recruiting classes to WVU, but you think about where he's coached. He's coached at Florida State. He's coached at LSU as an offensive coordinator. He's coached at Texas A&M. He's not going to get the same level of athletes that he's gotten in any of those schools. It's not going to happen, not unless the NIL situation really gets better with him here. Maybe he spends his own money. I don't know, but I don't see it. I don't know if I just don't know if he could get the type of player that he would be able to win with West Virginia, but I digress. Up next on Locked On West Virginia, what's the gameplay going to be like on Saturday? Do you think it's going to be heartless? Do you think there's going to be soul involved? We really need to be watching that because I think how the team performs in that game is going to really matter. It's going to tell us whether this team is bought in or bought out. And there's going to be new starters at corner. Should we be worried considering Daniels lit us up the last time he was in Morgantown? That's in segment 2 and segment 3 right here on Locked On West Virginia. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you now through September 22nd. All and every single one of the FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game, every single one. All you need is a Google account and current form of payment. You can cancel anytime. All you have to do is visit FanDuel.com, America's #1 sports book. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is also brought to you by Return on You, or ROY. Hey, West Virginia fans, have you heard of ROY? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, or just keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. NIL changes the game for athletes. ROI changes the NIL game for fans. It directly supports the players. ROI allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes. Download ROI for iOS and Android and enter referral code locked on, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes with $5,000 cash. Visit joinroi.com for additional details. No purchase is necessary and void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. To use the referral code locked on for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Is the West Virginia Mountaineers' confidence shaken? And to what level is it shaken if it is? It would be hard-pressed to believe that the back end isn't shaken and their confidence isn't shaken. And on the same token, you could say the front seven probably really high in confidence. They played really well. They've done an excellent job. I'd be so happy if the back end was just playing a little bit better, Just get the pick six that you could have got, just turn around and look for the ball. There's just some things that I don't get why are happening. And I just wonder, is their confidence shaken to the point to where they can't make plays? It's unfortunate, right? It's going to be really important to look onto the field and really gauge that, because the team that comes out Saturday and looks like they're dejected is going to get ejected back to whether Morgantown or Lawrence, Kansas. And so an article from Skylar Callahan goes over what Jordan Leslie said in the press conference the other day, and I'm going to go over the quote that he had because it's pretty significant in my opinion. After 3 extremely poor outings, is the confidence of West Virginia's secondary shaken? He said, it's just go to practice and get better, Leslie said. If the confidence level is shaken, you got to get over it and move on to what's next. I think a secondary that is confident will always play better, and you want them to be that way. Second drive of the game, we're up 7-0. We have a 98-yard pick six in the hands, and I know that gives you confidence. And those are going to come again at some point. Those opportunities are going to come again, and when we make them, that'll definitely help. We got to play better, but the results are not tied to how I feel about these guys and what I've seen. I know they can do it. We just got to get better and go do it. We can all sit around here and pout, complain, feel sorry for ourselves. I don't feel sorry for me, and nobody else should. I know they're not going to, and that's okay. I'm a big boy. I can sit around and dwell on that, or I can very simply move on to what's next, and what's next is getting our players ready for another opportunity, which is to go 1-0. This is the standard, this is standard for this, right? This is exactly what most coaches preach to players in this situation every year. It happens every year. So I'm not saying there's anything groundbreaking going on right here, but the simplicity of it is also pretty well, it's needed in this situation, I think. Don't give these kids a lot to think about. I really do think that's going to be big this week. What you're getting out of the Kansas offense, it's basically the same offense as it has been. It's just not functioning to the highest level. So you may get the kitchen sink this week because they're desperate, but have to be ready for that. Are you going to get dejected if a big play happens? We need to watch the body language of this back end, guys. I really think looking at that is going to be a major, major key and possibly clue as to how the rest of the game is going to go. I'm a little bit worried about it, but I just think, hey, look, if they can just make a play on a guy that's really struggling, like Garrett struggled, Jalen Daniels has really struggled, and please, we just have to kind of hope that we're not his coming out game. He's a scrambling quarterback. That's going to be another big issue for us. We've got athletic linebackers. We've got an athletic spear. I just don't get why we can't put somebody on these quarterbacks and watch them so they don't scramble on us. We've had just huge chunks of yards be gotten from players that aren't very athletic. Both of those guys were, I wouldn't say they were slow, but goodness, they're not Garrett Green, And It's like they were getting bigger runs and chunks than even Garrett Green was. So it's going to be a big thing to watch for Saturday, and I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Somebody's going to fold Saturday, and we have to hope and pray that it's not West Virginia. But one thing is for sure, West Virginia has a big play problem. And you look at it, the first 3 games of the year, in every single game, there are literally 4 to 5 occurrences, if not more, where a big play has occurred in a key situation. Go back to the second and 30, with 3 minutes to go in that game the other day. That was a killer for us. It really, truly was. And Jordan Leslie actually explained what happened there, and I'm going to read that to you now. He said, you go back to see on tape, and they hit a 60 or 70-yard touchdown against Cincinnati. Cincinnati is in a drop 8, and they dump it to the back and let it go. No matter what the situation was, I wasn't going to let that happen. It happened once in that game, I think for 20 in the first half. We missed a tackle on him. Reed's a good player. I wasn't going to let them dink and dunk it to the back in that situation. Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent, hindsight's 20/20. The Monday morning quarterback is always right. I'll take ownership of that. That was the game plan going in. We stuck by it. In a tip situation, you got to give them a call, get them lined up, and that's what I chose, and probably would have done it differently had I had it to do it again, but you don't get those chances. There are certain things in tight coverage that you're taught to do, and you have to execute them at all times. Again, you base it off what you watched up to that point in the season, and that was not a throw that he had made. I mean, he missed 4 or 5 of them in the Cincinnati game. What he didn't miss was the high dynamic check down was to the back. So I agree and disagree with what he said here, but first of all, you had held that kid in check all game. He did have the one where he made Reed Carrico, he juked him out, and he is super dangerous. But it's second 30. Like, you have to take into account like Holstein was a redshirt freshman. The game is on the line. I just don't think they were even considering dumping it off to that back on second 30. Like, it blows me away, guys. It really does. The logic he has for things sometimes blows me away. So rather than playing for the deep ball, you play not to let the back beat you. That's basically what he's saying here. And for him to say the Monday morning quarterback is always right, well, dude, you're in a position you are, and you're going to get criticized for the calls that you make. And it would be one thing if this was a one-time occurrence. Like, I'm not big on that. Like, if you had a great defense up until this point in the season, I guarantee you I would be shouting that from the rooftops. Every coach makes a mistake. Every defensive player makes a mistake. It happens. There's no way around that. But if you're sitting here trying to tell me the money quarterback's always right, when I've had to be that the last 3 weeks in a row to start a season, yeah, it's going to happen, man. And so hindsight is 20/20, but still, like there's things that are happening. That pass, if you go back and watch it, Dejon Reynolds caught that ball in between 3 separate defenders. Go back on tape and look at it. Garnes, Anthony Wilson, and Dantes Fagan were all right there, and they just ran into each other, basically. And this kid makes a catch. If any one of them would have just played the ball, like, it wasn't even that great of a throw. It just kills me. It really does. But at the end of the day, we're talking about Kansas. And up next on Locked On West Virginia, there's going to be new starters in the back end for this game. I wonder what that's going to look like, and should we be worried about that? Stay tuned. This episode of Locked On West Virginia is brought to you by Game Time. I love going to live events. Anytime I get a chance, I love to go see a concert or see a West Virginia game. It's really one of my first passions in life, and been doing it since I was a teenager. Well, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters at the left to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Game Time Picks' curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. All-in pricing. Toggle this feature, shows up the total up front, no surprise fees at checkout. Don't forget to turn the feature on first. Get a panoramic view if you want from the seat in the app before you buy. Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference, not just 100%, 110%. And your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. That's right. Download the Game Time app today. West Virginia is going to be playing some new starters in the secondary, and should we be worried about it? Well, let's talk about who they're going to be. TJ Crandall, transfer from Colorado State, almost 6 feet tall, really long and lanky kid. I was a big fan of his coming out. I really was. He's young. I get that. I don't know from a mental aspect where he's exactly at in the defense and learning the defense, but I know that I liked his on a physical level. He's fast and he can really run. His hips are really nice. He can turn them. So I'm excited to see what he looks like in this game. The Jacoby Spells is the other guy, right? And I don't know how much or how long these guys are both going to start. You obviously still have Hollis, you still have Garnes, but maybe just taking those guys off the field to start a game will put something in the fire in their belly, or, I don't know. But I really want to see how these guys look. We need to spark from someone. We just need one corner to play better. I truthfully, if we can just get one side of the field to play better, we can help the other guy. But we need one guy that can play one-on-one situations. We need somebody, right? Maybe Crandall's that guy, or maybe it's Jacoby Spells. We know we've seen Jacoby Spells. As a freshman, obviously, he didn't play up to par, and then he got a significant injury. We've heard a lot about him in the offseason as well, and although I don't trust what they say like I used to, there was a time when I would take it straight to the bank if a coach said a player was good. I'm no longer in that camp anymore. So really going to have to wait and see on this one. But Spells and Crandall will be starting, or at least playing a lot in the games upcoming and going forward. It's going to be big. We're going to hopefully, man, if they could just make one play, that would be super cool. I would love to see it happen. I'm rooting for it. Don't want anybody to get fired, guys. Don't want anybody to be upset or dejected. I know you guys got to feel the same way, So let's root for these guys and really hope they get it turned around. Because look, 1-3 is a whole lot worse than 2-2. If we get back to 2-2, I think we can get some excitement back in this fan base going into a bye week and leading up to Oklahoma State, right? So let's give them all the support we can, guys, and get on board with the Mountaineers, because I really have a good feeling about this game coming up Saturday. I know I'm 0-3, or I'm 1-2 if you got Albany. Really don't really count, but I'm 1-2. I get it. Not the greatest record to start, but I'm like West Virginia. I've got to get on track. I think Saturday is going to be a big day for us, but we'll see. Let's root these Mountaineers on and keep going, guys. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On College Football. From NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors, Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready for an exciting season on the gridiron. Find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This episode is over, and I'm out.